So, chapter three will be covering life insurance basics. So, once again, just more terminology on understanding just how different life insurance policies and contracts work, just things that you're going to find inside of a policy. Okay. Following up on chapter two. Now, life insurance. What does life insurance do? So, remember, you buy life insurance. What that does is you're transferring the risk from you to the insurance company. But when you purchase life insurance, what that does is it creates an immediate estate for your family. So just think an estate, it creates an immediate estate. Just think it creates an immediate big bag of money for your family. If I apply for life insurance, I'm going to be covered for 250,000. I I have the policy for 2 months. I pass away. My family's receiving a big bag of money, right? 250,000. Okay. So just think when you purchase life insurance, you're creating an immediate estate. Next is the term cash value. So cash value in insurance terminology is a fancy word for savings. It's a fancy word for a savings account that is tied to a life insurance policy. And that is what it's going to accumulate in life insurance. In chapter four, we will go through the different types of cash value life insurance policies. But for now, cash value is just a fancy word for savings. Okay. Next is an illustration. So, an illustration, it is a presentation or depiction of non-guaranteed elements of a policy. So, an illustration, it is a presentation or depiction. So, on the test, they may ask what is an illustration, and in one of the answers, you may see the word presentation, and then in a separate answer, you'll see the word depiction. It can be either one of those answers, but it is whichever one has non-guaranteed in the same sentence because it is a presentation or depiction of non-guaranteed elements of a contract. So what does that mean? It's just information that is input into the policy because they legally have to add that in there. It has nothing. So for example, I'm a male, I apply for life insurance. In my policy, there will be illustrations of what life insurance for a female would be from age 18 to age 70. That has absolutely nothing to do with my policy, but it is a non-guaranteed element, meaning an illustration that is inside of the policy just because they have to put it in there. Okay. Next is a buyer's guide. So a buyer's guide is generic, general, basic information of life insurance policies. So a buyer's guide is basic, generic information of different types of life insurance policies. In other words, it's just a sexy way of saying it's a menu for life insurance. It's going to give you exactly how each type of policy works. So if you go to a restaurant and you look at the menu is going to tell you exactly what each item holds. Same thing in a buyer's guide. The buyer's guide is going to tell you exactly how each life insurance policy works, how it works, the benefits of it, so on and so forth. Okay. Next is a policy summary. So a policy summary is going to give you specific information of that policy. Now, it's just think summary. If you're going to summarize a book, you're going to take the key points of that whole book and summarize it, right? Just put it into a paragraph or a page, and it's going to give you all the information that you need to know of that book. A policy summary is the same exact thing. It's going to give you specific information of what's in that policy. For example, it's going to give you who's insured, it'll give you coverage, it'll give you premium, meaning how much are they paying for the policy, and then it'll give you the length of time that the policy will have. What the policy summary will not give you is who the beneficiaries are. So the beneficiaries will not be written in the policy summary. The beneficiaries will be written on the back on the copy of the application. Okay, so there's a question that pops up there that will say, so all of the following will be listed in a policy summary except A, coverage, B, premium, C, length of time, or D, beneficiaries. Beneficiaries will not be listed on the policy summary. Okay. All right. Next are approaches. So, what is an approach? This is when you are looking to figure out how much life insurance coverage someone needs. There's two different ways of doing it. There's the needs approach, which the needs approach is going to look at what would the family need today if the insured dies. For example, if I died today, what would my family need in order to pay off my debt, in order to replace my income, in order to finish paying off the home, and in order to take care of final expenses? So let's say, you take all those things into account, that will determine an example that I should minimum have $500,000 of coverage to make sure that my debt's paid off, replaces my income, my mortgage is paid off, and final expenses are taken care of. So it's going to focus on today's needs. And a good acronym to remember that is DIME, right? DIME. Okay. But key point I do want to make though with the needs approach is that the needs approach of the two different types of approaches, the needs approach is going to look at what the family is going to need short term. Meaning, if I were to die today, what will my family need today to take care of everything? Okay. The second type of approach is what is known as the human life value approach. So think human life value. So what's that human's life? What is his the value of his life to his family? This is going to focus on future needs, not what would my family need today, what will they need in the future, right? It talks about income and money down the road. So if this question pops up, you're going to see words like inflation, right? When we talk about inflation, we're not talking about um, the cost of living right now. We're talking about the cost of living 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and the years until retirement, right? We're not retiring today. We're retiring 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. So the human life value approach, what it's looking at is long term. Okay. So it's going to look at what would the family need long term if the insured were to pass away. Okay. Now, next are the application process. So, application, simply put, obviously, is you submit an application to the company, the applicant and the policy owner need to sign, which typically applicant and policy owner and insured is typically the same person. Okay. But once again, if it's not the same person, number one, is there insurable interest? And obviously, is there consent? Okay. Now, any changes made on the application must be initialed by the applicant. Now, this is, old school. When we used to do paper applications, you would have to, if there was any changes made, you wouldn't have to start the application all over again. You would just, put your initials next to it so that the company knows that it was you that authorized that, the applicant. But now, because everything's done electronically, if anything's missing, you just go back and you correct it. Okay. Now, also, there's what's called a non-medical application. So, a non-medical application is an application that requires no physical exam. So, you do not have to do a blood and urine exam. Okay, that is what is considered a non-medical application. So, no blood and urine exam is required. Next are consent forms. So consent forms, there's two forms that need to be signed or you have to give consent on. Number one is a HIV consent form. And then number two, this is misspelled here. It's actually HIPAA AA. Okay. And what that is a HIPAA authorization consent form. All that is HIPAA, it's a law that protects your medical information from being shared. So you sign that consent form, you meaning the insured, the person that's applying for the insurance, they sign that consent form, just letting the company know, hey, I do not want my information to be shared with anyone else. Okay, that's just a HIPAA law. Okay. Now, next are business uses of life insurance. So these are three different ways on how businesses will use life insurance. There's only two listed here, but I'm going to give you a third one that you may see. The first one is key person insurance. So, key person insurance, it says when a company buys an insurance policy on a key employee or person so that when they die, they receive money to hire or train a replacement. Here, for example, let's say I own a restaurant. I have my chef that knows how to make the food, right? Knows all the recipes. People always come back because they know the food's going to taste the same. He to my business is considered a key person, a key employee. So I can put life insurance on him. Why? Because if he passes away, guess what? Now I have to find a replacement. I have to hire a replacement. I have to train the replacement. So that takes money. So this insurance can cover that cost. Now, one thing to remember about key person insurance is that key person insurance will never be on the owner of the business. Okay. It is always on an employee. So always an employee, never on the owner of the business. Okay. So I've seen a question pop up that asks about a small hardware store owner. He cannot have key person insurance because he's the owner of the hardware store. An employee there, yes, but him, the owner, cannot have key person insurance because he owns it. Okay. Next is a buy-sell agreement. So a buy-sell agreement, it says when a corporation or business partners agree to purchase or buy the deceased partner's shares of the business, their heirs agree to sell it. So what this is, for example, let's say me and you are going to we're going to go into business together and we decide, hey, we want to buy a McDonald's. McDonald's, $1 million to start. We say, okay, well, you put in 50%, which is 500,000, and I'm going to put in 50%, 500,000. So we're 50-50 partners in the McDonald's. Now we purchase a buy-sell agreement with what it is I'm covering you with life insurance for 500,000 and you're covering me with life insurance for 500,000. What does a buy sell agreement mean? It's we're coming to an agreement that if I die, I'm selling my part of the business to you and you're buying it with the life insurance policy. So remember, I put life insurance on you, you put life insurance on me for 500,000, which is what I put in. What happens is if I pass away, instead of you getting the 500,000 from the life insurance, that is actually going to be given to my family, to my heirs, to my family, and now you become 100% owner of the McDonald's. So in other words, it's purchasing a life insurance policy to buy out my part of the business. Okay, but we're already coming to an agreement while we're both alive that if I die, I'm selling my portion, vice versa. If you pass away, you're selling yours to me, and now I'm 100% owner of the McDonald's, and you are sorry, your family is receiving the $500,000 that you put in, basically from the life insurance policy. Okay. And the third one that I mentioned that I wanted to give you guys is what is known as an executive bonus. So, what an executive bonus is, and let me write it over here. It is when employer, so the company, gives employee a bonus or wage increase for life insurance. Okay. So for example, let's say, you work for XYZ company, and the owner of the company calls you in and says, "Hey, you've been a great employee here with us. We're paying you $75,000 a year. We actually want to give you a bonus of $5,000. So we're actually going to pay you $80,000. But that extra $5,000 that we're giving you is specifically for you to purchase life insurance for yourself. It's not for you to go enjoy. It's not for you to go to Vegas with. It's not for you to go buy a new car. It's specifically for you to purchase life insurance. This is why they're giving you the bonus for you to buy life insurance. Now, reason they do it is because they can use it as a tax deductible because they're giving it to you as income, as a bonus, but then you have to pay taxes on it. So, and when I mean you, referring to the employee, right? The employee has to pay taxes on it. Why? Because it was given to him as income, him or her as income, right? So they have to pay taxes on it. Okay. So that is an executive bonus. Now, just finishing down here, underwriting. So, what underwriting is, whenever you submit an application to Primerica, the first place that that application goes to is to the underwriting department. So, the underwriting department is known as the risk selection process. So the underwriting department is the one that's going to determine what type of risk the applicant or insured, proposed insured, what type of risk they're going to be. Okay. So let me jump down here to risk classifications, and then we'll come back to these two because risk classification has to do with underwriting. So let's say I am applying for $250,000 of life insurance coverage. And you ran me a quote, and my monthly premium for this was going to be 50,000, sorry, $50 a month. So I submit the application, Primerica goes through it. They see, okay, based on his height, his weight, he is standard. So I am standard, average, risk. So I am going to pay the same price that you quoted me for, $50 a month. Standard average risk is where the majority of people fall. Okay, fall into that category. Standard average risk. So premium is going to stay the same, $50 a month. Now, let's say I do a blood and urine exam, and based on my blood and urine, Primerica says, well, we're going to classify him, or his risk is going to be preferred, a preferred risk, which means I am above average. So meaning I'm healthier than majority of people out there. So what they're going to do is they're actually going to give me a discount. So for the same $250,000 of coverage, instead of having to pay $50 a month, I'm going to get a discount and I'm going to pay $40 a month. Why? Because I'm super healthy. And then third is a substandard risk. So substandard, or also known as rated. So substandard, right? So just think of a submarine. A submarine goes underwater, right? So substandard would be under standard, meaning unhealthy, right? Below average. So if I am rated or considered substandard, my classification, now for the same $250,000 that I applied for, I got approved, but it's actually going to be $60 a month instead of the original 50. So I'm going to pay a little bit more. I got approved though, but it's going to be a little more expensive because I'm a higher risk. Okay. And lastly, here, when we refer to the term premium mode, what we're referring to is, remember, the word premium is another word for payment, and mode in insurance is the frequency. So, how often are you paying your policy? So, premium mode is just the frequency of payments, right? How frequently are you making your insurance, your premium payments, right, for your life insurance? So, there's monthly, which is 12 payments in a year. There's quarterly, which is every 3 months, so 4 times a year. There's biannually, which is every 6 months. So twice a year you're making your payments. And then there's annually when you're just making one payment for the whole year. Okay. Now, what does this have to do with the test? Is the more frequent the payment, the more expensive. So monthly is the most expensive way to pay your premium. Annually is the cheapest. Why? Because you're only making one payment. Just think one processing fee. Monthly, there's 12 processing fees. So annually is cheaper. Okay. So remember, monthly most expensive, annually the cheapest. Now, there is a question on the test that may ask, so if the individual on their anniversary date decides to change their premium mode from monthly to annually, what happens to the premium? So they're going from monthly to annually. They're going from making 12 payments to now just one payment. So what's going to happen? Their premium is going to be lower, right? It's going to be cheaper. Okay. And then lastly, finishing up here is what is not used to calculate your premium is a dividend. A dividend is not used to determine premiums. Why? And this, if you remember this, this is going to help you tremendously, is because a dividend is never guaranteed, never guaranteed, and a dividend is never taxed. So it will never be used in calculating premiums. Okay. Why? Because it is never guaranteed and it is never taxed. And as we go into chapter 5 and 6, we'll touch a little bit more on what a dividend is. But for this chapter, it's all you need to know, right? Is that it is not used to determine your premium. Okay. So awesome. That's chapter 3, which is life insurance basics. Once again, just make sure to go through it as much as possible. Replay this video as many times as you need. Stop it, pause it, take notes, just to simplify it and make it as easy for you as possible.